Mr. Kraus, I have 7 o'clock on my computer, and I have gotten confirmation that the live stream is working. So you are ready to begin the meeting if you are ready.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Dr. Bolton. And welcome everyone who has joined us on the live stream. Unfortunately, due to weather conditions, we're unable to meet in person tonight. So fortunately, technology gives us this live stream that we have tonight. So with that, I will call the meeting to order, and we will begin with a salute to the flag. So if everybody would please salute the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right, Mrs. Chenoweth, would you please call the roll?
Sure. Mrs. Banis Clemens?
Here.
Mr. Cormack?
Here.
Mrs. Cullen?
Here.
Mrs. Dolan?
Here.
Mr. Gerhart?
Here.
Mr. Kraus?
Here.
Mr. Rice?
Here.
Dr. Thompson?
Here.
And Mrs. Walters?
Here.
All right, thank you very much. Moving on with the agenda, we'll move into the public comment portion. According to policy 903, public comment, which is limited to 3 minutes, should be directed to the presiding officer rather than individual board members, district employees, or members of the public. For confidentiality and privacy rights, specific comments regarding particular individuals must be communicated privately to the school board and superintendent via email at psdschoolboard@pennridge.org.
Thank you, Mr. Kraus. Mr. Miller, in that statement, we often refer to policy 903. We do have a number of public comment this evening. So could I ask you to take a moment to explain both the content of policy 903 as well as how it guides our public comment for this evening?
Sure, Dr. Bolton and members of the audience. Policy 903 has been a longstanding policy of the district with regard to public comment, and it attempts to balance the privacy rights of individuals and the rights of individuals under the Sunshine Act. And so there are 2 periods of public comment. The first is a period of public comment at the beginning of the meeting for agenda items only, designed to allow the board to get to the matters that they have to vote on and dispose of those before hearing a second period of public comment, which can be on matters of public concern. Each person who is speaking must be a taxpayer or resident of the school district, and your right to speak is limited to 3 minutes. Both of these periods are 60 minutes in length, and of course, as Bill referred to, the board has been very clear that we have the right to limit or terminate the statement if you exceed the time limit, if things are abusive, personally directed, obscene, or irrelevant. And so as parliamentarian, I have tried in previous meetings and in this meeting, and will continue to try to enforce Rule 903 or Policy 903 in a fair and even-handed way. In the past, I've ruled people out of order, and I've asked people to change their statements so that they remain within the rule. Here, because we have comments that are in writing, I don't have an opportunity to interact with people and kind of coach them to a point where they could stay within the confines of Rule 903. And so we've done our very best to preserve as many comments as possible, knowing again that I don't have the ability as parliamentarian to interact with somebody and say, could you rephrase what you're saying? Lastly, and just let me be very clear about this, a period of public comment is not a period of demanding answers to questions. Questions can be posed. Very often the board or officers respond to those questions when they have an opportunity to respond. And so I just want to be clear about this, that the board will listen and will continue to listen thoughtfully to all questions that are raised. If you do not get a response immediately, it is not because the board has not listened. And very often board members will come back at the next meeting, or Dr. Bolton will come back to address issues. So Dr. Bolton, you have been gracious enough not to hit the gong to tell me my time is up, but that is a larger than necessary explanation. But I think it's worth it.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. I do appreciate that. I know that we often cite that policy, but I thought it made some sense since there's multiple public comments tonight to speak about that. Mr. Kraus, this evening, there are, as I said, multiple public comments, but there are none that are directed towards agenda items. So I would recommend that we go ahead and move through the agenda so that people who are here to hear agenda items, we can act on those items, and then we could include the public comments at the end.
Very well. Yep, agreed.
I believe that there is no president's report tonight, so if it pleases the board, I can move into the superintendent's report.
Very well. Yep, please.
Ms. Cooper, if you would please go ahead and share your screen, I would appreciate that so that the photos and the video can go through as we talk about the superintendent's report. As usual, the last 2 months, December and January, have been very busy in Pennridge. So I just want to highlight a few activities to show you what our students and our staff and even our community has been up to. First is a photo collage of the Winter Wonderland at Bedminster. It was a fun way to celebrate the season with the entire school community. So impressed and thankful for the teachers who set up stations with festive decorations, gave out hot chocolate and other treats. It was a wonderful way to have our students and families see smiling faces and for the whole community to come together in a creative way as we could in the month of December. So such an appreciation for Bedminster. A similar situation at West Rock Hill. West Rock Hill had two very special visitors in December. Santa stopped by on the fire truck, thanks to the Sellersville Fire Company. And then on their way in, there was a principal on the shelf in the lobby. For the rest of the month of December, the students anxiously came in off the buses every day to try to find where the principal on the shelf would be in the school. There were lots of smiling faces on the kids and the adults. And at many of our elementary schools, I just want to thank the Dublin Dairy Queen, who also gave away free Dairy Queen treats at many of those events to be able to add to the smile. So thank you again to the Dublin Dairy Queen. Next, we had a snow day. On December 17th, the Pennridge community had a classic snow day. We were able to put out a challenge and wanted to know how our families were celebrating. So we got students, families, and even staff members to submit their photos or videos to be entered into our snow day contest. And there were over 15 prizes awarded. A big thank you to Ms. Cooper, who put together a video to show us our winners. So let's go ahead and see that now from among our 100 submissions. They were a lot of fun, although I do have to tell you that my wife was unhappy that our submission did not get her some Pennridge swag. She thought I had more pull than that. But thank you so much, Ms. Cooper, and thank you for all the families who submitted that. I appreciate it. We move into January, and next were the various celebrations and lessons for Dr. Martin Luther King's Day. Throughout January, students across the district learned about the importance of Dr. King's work through classroom lessons, activities, and service projects. And here are a few examples. Mrs. Grimm's first grade class watched a video that explained the impact of Dr. King's work and some of his accomplishments. They then did an excellent activity on how we look to the world versus how we look on the inside. It was a wonderful way for them to learn that just like eggs of various color, we all look the same on the inside. Next, Mrs. Groff's 5th grade class talked about Dr. King the entire week. Their lessons culminated in an activity utilizing their laptops, where the students had the options to watch several videos on Dr. King and were tasked with expressing why Dr. King was important in their own words. There were some really powerful examples that came out of that class that week. Miss Smith's 3rd grade class read the book I Am Martin Luther King Jr. by Brad Meltzer. They talked about his life as a child and what events led him on his career path. It was a neat way for the students to see Dr. Martin Luther King as someone their age and what it was like for him to grow up. They then at the end of that wrote their own personal dreams based on some of the things they had heard. I just want to thank all of our staff and our curricular supervisors for finding multiple and creative ways to honor Dr. Martin Luther King and have our students learn about him. Excuse me. Next is our live stream schedule. Just want to remind you to check out our winter sports live stream. During the winter season, each team identified at least 2 contests. Usually it was their senior night and one other big rival game at least for live streaming. And this allows the extended community to view the contest while fans have to be limited in the venue itself. A huge thank you to the high school TV studio student leaders and under the direction of Ms. Callie Cooper for their expert work on these live stream activities. If you have not checked out one of these live streams, I would encourage you to do so. The quality is just amazing and outstanding. And finally, January is School Board Appreciation Month. Each January is designated as School Board Appreciation Month and is our opportunity to formally thank each school board member for their service to the district and the Pennridge community. These 9 members spend countless hours each month reviewing information for meetings, preparing for meetings, attending those meetings, reading emails, and attending both school and community events. Did I mention that they are volunteers? The Pennsylvania School Boards Association, or PSBA, estimates that members across the state spend on average 14 hours a month on school board members. And that does not include the conversations that happen at Landis or on the soccer fields. And so I personally want to say thank you to this board for their dedication to the students, staff, families, and the taxpayers throughout the entire Pennridge community. We are Pennridge proud of you and appreciate the work that you do. That is the superintendent's report for tonight, Mr. Kraus. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Bolton. Donations. Dr. Bolton? You're muted, Dr. Bolton.
Thank you for that reminder as well, and for poking me about the donations. I want to thank the donation of various lights that are valued at $4,348.72 that were donated and to be used throughout the Pennridge High School. So again, thank you for that donation.
All right, thank you very much. Student liaison, do we have a student liaison report tonight?
We do not this evening.
Okay, then we'll move into the approval of the consent calendar. I would like to make a motion to approve the consent calendar, items listed as A through H.
I'll second that.
Seconded by Mr. Rice. Questions or comments from board members? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes 9-0. Moving on to the committee reports. First is the Facilities Committee. The committee did meet on November 9th, and we have several items for consideration this evening. First is a motion to accept M.M. Seiler Elementary Home and School Association donation of 3 playground spinner bowls.
I'll second that. Oh.
And that was seconded by Mrs. Walters, I believe.
Sure.
Okay. Questions or comments from board members? So anybody questioning what these spinner bowls are, I had a very similar question. It is a very unique item that allows the student to kind of sit in a bowl, if you will, in the spinner, which is very cool. So it's a very, very unique element to have in the playground. So all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye. Oh, no, not opposed. I was just a little late.
Okay, motion passes 9-0. Thank you very much. Next, we have a motion to approve obsolete items listed as A through D.
Make a motion.
That's a second by Mr. Cormack. Questions or comments from board members? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion passes
Aye, sorry.
9-0.
Couldn't get to my mute button fast enough.
The next Facilities Committee meeting is scheduled for Monday, February 8th. And with that, we'll move into Finance. Mrs. Banis Clemens.
Thank you, Mr. Kraus. The Finance Committee met on November 9th. The first motion, I'll make a motion to approve contracts A through F. And for those who are watching virtually, all of the details for that are in board docs online. So you can access and read all of those details without me boring you with all of them.
I'll second.
Okay, seconded by Dr. Thompson. Questions or comments from board members? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed?
Aye.
Okay, Katie, we got you as being in favor, is that correct?
I was in favor. Yes, sir.
Okay, all right, motion passes 9-0. Mrs. Banis Clemens.
Thank you. I'll make a motion to approve the 2021-2022 Pennridge School District calendar. I'll second that.
Seconded by Mr. Kraus. Questions or comments from board members?
Dr. Bolton, that date right after the Monday after Thanksgiving, did we clarify, are all 3 districts now going to school that day?
She's referring to Palisades and Quakertown and Pennridge since they impact the Upper Bucks County Technical School.
Yes, thank you.
Quakertown has that day as a contractual day off for their teachers, so they are not able at this time to adjust that Monday, although that is their plan moving forward if the contract were to change. Palisades does have a school day on that day, which means our tech school students would in fact be attending. I do not know how Quakertown will handle tech school on that.
Okay.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion passes 9-0.
Mr. Kraus, if I may, just because I know many of the community members may not be looking at the calendar, just
Absolutely.
provide just a reminder that we do have a board policy about whether school starts prior or after Labor Day, depending on how late Labor Day is. Labor Day is late again next year. It is September 6th, which means we do start prior to Labor Day again next year. And that is August 30th, which would be the first day of school. The rest of the calendar is identical to this year's calendar in terms of the use of professional development days and where the holidays fall, except for the hunting Monday, or the Monday after Thanksgiving. That had been a tradition in Pennridge when that was the opening of hunting season. Hunting season for multiple years now has begun on Saturday instead of that Monday, which means there is the opportunity for the weekend. And so to be able to get a school day at the beginning of the year, as well as to end the school day year a day earlier, our recommendation is for that Monday to be a school day. Currently, pending winter weather, the last day of school for students will be June 9th, and the last day for teachers will be June 10th, which is a Friday next year. That again is a pending weather. Just wanted to provide an update because I know that's something that's always interesting to people. Thank you.
Yep, and thank you for that clarification. Okay, I think Mrs. Banis Clemens, we're back to you.
Okay, next I'll make a motion to approve the charter school funding reform resolution.
I'll second that.
Okay. Questions or comments from board members? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion passes 9-0. Dr.
Perhaps
Bolton?
I again
Yes,
add some
please.
color commentary now of that resolution, again,
Yes.
that people who may not be reviewing it. This is a resolution that is being considered across the state. That's actually being recommended by the Pennsylvania School Board Association, or PSBA, that I mentioned earlier. There are now close to 400 school districts across the state has adopted that now that Pennridge is added to that list, including Quakertown and Palisades and Central Bucks, our neighboring school districts. The purpose of that resolution is not to comment on charter schools. It's to comment on charter school funding. Currently, charter school funding follows a student. So we have to pay tuition towards the charter school for a student. So currently that is over $13,000 for a regular education student and over $32,000 for a special ed student, regardless of services. There is no impact with services. That funding is out of whack most for cyber charters, which make up the vast majority of our charter school students. About 75% of our students are involved in cyber charters that are identical in content to our cyber program. Our cyber program costs about $5,000 per high school student if you count the courses and the technology involved for a cyber student. So a reminder that if it costs us $5,000, but the charter school is getting either $13,000 or $32,000, this resolution is asking for the legislature to look at that in balance and to come up with a funding formula that is more consistent with what the charter school's expenses are, as opposed to a flat number. And so that is the consideration of the reform, and I will be passing that along to our local legislatures.
And just to piggyback on that, when you look at our brick and mortar costs, it's almost 50% of what our per pupil rate is, of what it's made up as. So when you think about the cyber charter schools, then are getting basically double what our per pupil cost is, when you think about the fact that they're not busing, they don't have buildings, conditioned space, a nurse, a nutritional services program, all of those things that we're offering that are built into those costs. And the special education thing, I would welcome the state, though, if they think that an extra $18,000 per kid automatically, if they qualify for special education, if they think that's a fair funding formula, I would welcome them to send us $18,000 for each kid, and then it'll be fair, because that funding will pass directly on. But I have a feeling they're not going to make that change, which is why it doesn't really add up. So.
Okay. All right, thank you very much for that commentary, Dr. Bolton. Back to you, Mrs. Banis-Clemens.
Next, I'll make a motion to approve the closing of high school class of 2020 executive council account.
Second.
Seconded by Dr. Thompson. Questions or comments from board members? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, motion passes 9-0. Mrs. Banis-Clemens.
I'll make a motion to approve the implementation of net support at the high school level.
I'll second that.
Seconded by Mr. Rice. Questions or comments from board members? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion passes 9-0. Mrs. Banis-Clemens.
Next, I'll ask for a motion to approve the resolution establishing tax collector compensation procedures and rules effective January 1st, 2022.
Okay. I'll second that.
I was asking for a motion. I didn't make one.
You were asking for a motion. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Okay, that being said, I'll make a motion to table this motion to the next meeting.
I'll second
Second.
that.
Seconded by Dr. Thompson. Questions or comments from board members? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, motion to table passes 9-0. Back to you, Mrs. Bateman Clemens.
Thank you, Mr. Kraus. The next Finance Committee meeting is scheduled for Monday, February 8th.
Thank you very much. Policy Committee, Dr. Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Kraus. The Policy Committee met on January 11th, and the notes for the meeting are listed there in board docs. Tonight, I'd like to make a motion for the approval of policies for first reading. Those are policy 003, 201, 204, 208, 222, 233, 237, 323, 626, 707, 805.2. I won't read them. They are all individually listed in board docs. You are welcome to read them.
I'll second.
Seconded by Mrs. Cullen. Questions or comments from board members? Just for the public's knowledge, there's quite a few policies there, and we're in a policy review cycle where we are reviewing policies that either have not been updated or touched in quite a few years, and we're bringing them in line with current recommendations from PSBA. So just a reminder for everybody. So we have a second. Questions or comments other than that? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, opposed? Motion passes 9-0. Back to you, Dr. Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Kraus. And next, I'll make a motion to approve the following policies A through J, which are 000, 005, 006.1, 007, 011, 247, 248, 249, 317.1, and 824. Once again, also listed there in board docs. You can read them at length.
Second them.
Seconded by Mr. Rice. Questions or comments? My same comments apply. This is a continuation of our efforts to bring the policies up to current standards. So thank you very much, Dr. Thompson, Dr. Wyorka, and the rest of the staff, Dr. Bolton, who worked so hard on these to bring us into compliance and up to current PSBA recommendations. Okay, any other questions or comments from board members? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion passes 9-0. Back to you, Dr. Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Kraus. The next policy meeting is scheduled for Monday, March 8th. Thank you.
Okay. All right, IU, Mrs. Baines Clemens.
Thank you, Mr. Kraus. The IU met on January 19th, and I'm trying to keep it somewhat brief tonight, but there are a couple of things I just want to highlight. But there's a lot of really neat things they share in awesome news that you guys have to know about. So I'll email you the awesome news so you all can read about it yourselves. But I do want to highlight some things. First, the Bucks IU accessibility supports for students with visual and/or hearing impairments. The Bucks IU is proud to provide comprehensive support services to students with visual impairments and/or hearing impairments. Students receive direct instruction from our specialized staff, including teachers of the visually impaired, orientation and mobility specialists, and teachers of the deaf and hard of hearing. While students benefit from direct individualized instruction from staff, the Bucks IU also provides a number of supports that allow students to successfully and safely access, participate, and succeed in general curriculum. The Bucks IU operates 3 satellite accessible material production sites, and one of them is in Pennridge. The other 2 are Council Rock South and Neshaminy High, which produce a variety of materials for students. Some of the support services that are offered include translating text to Braille, converting images to tactile diagrams, creating CVI accessible materials, formatting accessible PDFs, recreating pictures, diagrams, and maps, amplification, sign language interpreting, and C-print captioning. One of the most important things that we discussed was our programs and services budget, which is going to be coming to us at our next Finance Committee meeting. The proposed 2021-2022 programs and services and instructional materials and research services budget in the amount of $2,171,414 was presented at the meeting. This budget supports the operation of Programs and Services Division of the Bucks County Intermediate Unit, which provides direct curriculum, instruction, assessment, staff development, comprehensive planning, school improvement, and instructional materials, research, and instructional technology services to Bucks County school districts. This budget is funded by state subsidies, direct contributions, and other local sources. This is the only part of the budget that we pass here that's not other add-on services that that are paid for through other means and other entrepreneurial methods. This budget, this year's budget has increased from last year by $64,000 or about 3%. While the overall budget has increased, overall district contributions have decreased. The budget increase is funded by those entrepreneurial efforts and grants that the Programs and Services Division brings in. The contribution is determined by two formulas. One formula includes payments by each member district, irrespective of its size. There is no increase in that amount for each district over last year's amount, and that amount remains $2,679. The other formula is determined by multiplying a fixed dollar amount times the number of students enrolled in the district as of October the prior year. The dollar amount used to determine the cost per student contribution contains no increase over last year's rate of $4.55 per student. For us, that's $30,854. The budget based on enrollment and the fixed rate comes to $33,533, which is a decrease of $700. The purchased services went from $47,379 to $46,986, which is a decrease of $393. So if you total those, last year it was $81,612.55, and this with contribution based on withholding at $46,986.46 and purchased service at $33,532.55. So our total is $80,519.01, which was a decrease of $1,093.54. So the important piece here is, even though the budget went up because they keep taking on all different projects, they also find other ways to fund those projects to be able to provide more services, so less cost to the district. The Bucks County Intermediate Unit also has support teams, and they work with the administrations at each of the sending districts to come up with what areas of need there are for support for them to provide. And the ones that they're working on currently specific to Pennridge are CDT implementation, support for gifted programming at the high school level, LRE, which is the least restrictive environment for special education. They're doing an audit, data analysis, recommendations, training, and coaching on LRE practices. Para-educator trainings with the possibility of credentialing them for Pennridge. And is that, I don't know if it's PIC, ongoing support for coaches. I don't know if that acronym is pronounced that way.
It is.
And finally, I just wanted to mention that the Bucks County IU has been instrumental in working tirelessly to try to provide services to our districts regarding COVID. One of the things that they did was they worked to provide COVID testing sites for all staff from all of the districts in the county. The closest one for us is in Quakertown at the Government Services Building, so that all of our staff can get tested right away whenever there's a need for testing. And they've gone further in setting up public sites. One is at the Bucks County Community College. So, and now they are also working on providing access to the vaccines to staff within the county and trying to make that a priority. So I know that's been something that they've been working on tirelessly. And the next IU board meeting is scheduled for Thursday, February 16th.
Thank you, Ms. Clemens.
Mr. Kraus,
Mrs. Cullen?
I just wanted to ask Mrs. Banis Clemens, you mentioned that you were going to email us a list. Could you put that in the notes of the meeting so people who are watching, maybe they want to see the good things that are happening as well?
That's a great idea. In fact, I was going to ask Dr. Bolton too, could we put a link to the awesome news on our website? I think Quakertown actually does that, where they provide links to certain IU reports directly on the website so people can open them up and read them. Is that something that we could do?
I'll definitely have Ms. Cooper take a look at it.
Thanks.
Sounds like it should be easy.
Thank you.
It does. Okay, thank you. Next up is Upper Bucks County Technical School, Mr. Cormack. You're muted, Mr. Cormack.
Thank you, Mr. Kraus. Sorry for not muting it. I first of all wanted to thank the committee members, which we have Dave Rice and Megan Benes Clemens, myself, and also Ms. Dolan, Katie Dolan, who calls me Mr. Bob at the board meetings. She's taken on the alternate route for helping us out, but her services over the past 3 years and over the next 3 years are going to be critical in looking at working with the VOTEC school. And I know her insights, from my perspective, are going to be utilized continually. So I just wanted to say thank you to Katie. Moving on with the VOTEC, the agricultural building program or facility received their occupancy permit on December 23rd, 2020. On January 11th, the school started to bring in small animals for evaluation and so forth. And that's moving along really, really well. We have a new welding instructor, Joshua Kosak, who has just joined the staff. We have a food drive that we participated in, and we put over 920 pounds of food that went to the Pennridge Fish and the Quakertown Food Pantry, which I think is really exciting. Also, Ray Stiffer from the Machining Technology Program, taught by Mr. Dean Roush, made it to the President Scholarships Program next round. That is a unique position to be in. It was only later, I think it was in 2015, where the President's Award Program went into VOTEC type schools and looked at the curriculums the VOTEC schools had and started to introduce students with super skills. And Ray has made that next step, and I will keep you informed as he progresses through the evaluation process at the President's level. So that's really exciting. And second of all, and last of all, Bob Mensch's office was able to secure a $200,000 grant for 5 different programs for equipment financing. So that is a great contribution to the VOTEC school. Anytime the students can receive new innovative equipment, that is a real big plus. And we want to thank Senator Minch for really stepping forward and helping the VOTEC school out with that program. So again, thank you very much, Senator. Our next meeting is scheduled for February 18th. Thank you, Mr. Kraus.
Thank you, Mr. Cormack.
Mr. Kraus?
Yes, Mrs. Dolan.
May I just, for a moment, I just wanted to thank Mr. Bob for recognizing myself and I. It was my pleasure to serve on that JOC, and now I hope that I can still be helpful being the alternate, but I appreciate his kind words. So thank you.
Yes.
You're more than welcome.
Yes. And your services are very much appreciated, Mrs. Dolan, and it's well known that you have a passion for the VOTEC. So please continue in that. Thank you. Pennridge Area Coordinating Committee, Mr. Cormack.
Mr. Kraus, thank you again. I want to make a quick report with the Pennridge Area Coordinating Committee. It is the municipalities that are associated with the Pennridge School District. They meet on a monthly basis, and it's a great program to understand what's going on in each individual township and how those activities in the township might impact the school district. They now meet at the Pennridge Regional Police Department's offices, and they are not virtual, they are live meetings. So it's a great group of individuals. This past month, Silverdale, West Rock Hill, and East Rock Hill were representative. Ms. Black noted that the fire tax of 1.5 mils was going to be raised to alleviate revenue downturn for the fire company. West Rock Hill, Mr. Miller talked about upgrades to the community pool and how those upgrades might not be able to fund the opening of the pool in the summer. We'll have to see about that. They also talked about installing an electrical charge station for vehicles at the James Park, and they're also looking at bids for solar panels, which will cover the electric needs of all their facilities at the township. And last but not least, Mr. Nyman indicated that the status of the Rock Hill Quarry situation, final stages of the comprehensive plan for the township, and they're looking at their 2021 budget with no tax increases. So those three municipalities have certainly done wonders for the area. The next meeting is going to be January 28th at 7 p.m. at the Regional Police Department's building. Mr. Kraus, that's my report.
Thank you, Mr. Cormack. Next committee is the Pennridge Community Educational Foundation. Mrs. Walters.
Thank you, Mr. Kraus. PCEF met on January 9th. I was not in attendance at the meeting, but they discussed the social media campaign, which we're going to launch, called Faces of Pennridge. And we're going to start honoring teachers who are dedicated, selfless educators who go above and beyond for their students, especially during this trying time in the pandemic. So there's a separate subcommittee that's meeting to work on organizing that, and we'll have more information soon. And our next meeting is going to be February the 6th.
Thank you, Mrs. Walters. Moving into old business, is there any old business? Okay. Seeing none, new business?
I have some new business, Mr. Kraus.
Mrs. Cullen, please.
Thank you. Right. The definitions of insurrection and sedition identify them as open revolt
to governmental authority, often with violence or force. Assembling peacefully to advocate for election integrity, as I and many others did on January 6th, does not meet that standard by any stretch. In fact, asking for election laws to be followed in accordance with the constitutions of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania and the United States is pretty much the exact opposite of insurrection and sedition, as you are specifically requesting that the laws of your government not be cast aside, but followed to the letter. In any event, I am pleased that our peaceful advocacy was heard. Action is being taken in Pennsylvania and in our federal government to investigate changes made to state election procedures in 2020, which appear to have fallen outside what's provided in the law. In Pennsylvania, there have already been 2 hearings with 12 more scheduled. From those, state legislators will be able to enact reforms to prevent unconstitutional changes in the future and provide for the free and fair elections, which are essential to the preservation of our republic. Regarding the violence committed by a fringe group on January 6th, my opinion is the same as always. Violence is wrong, and the perpetrator should face consequences. I'm glad some now recognize that violence against innocent people is never warranted. Last year, we saw widespread unrest, including an attempted breach of the White House fence, during which 67 Secret Service agents were injured. Overall, although the percentage of violent rioters represented a very small fringe, just as it did on January 6th, they nonetheless caused billions of dollars in damage, dozens of deaths, and devastated once vibrant communities. Perhaps the US Capitol breach could have been prevented if last year's violence had been universally condemned. Sadly, anti-government violence has only continued since January 6th. But instead of everyone condemning all violence, some are choosing to lead witch hunts against innocent individuals who are not involved in any improper or illegal activity whatsoever. Speaking of witch hunts, the latest attempt to force me to resign from the school board is yet another unwarranted attack by the same people with the same tactics employed in the past. My attendance at political events and social media communications related to my other elected positions has no effect on my school board work. The now years-old examples offered as supposed evidence of that are misrepresentations. For example, I did not unfairly punish students for their political beliefs. Students of all political beliefs were treated equally, and I will work to make sure that's always the case. I also did not block a social studies textbook. The administration decided to pull a textbook and ultimately found one they liked better, which was then approved. The field of supposed political interference in my school board service is so bereft, a small group of people need to constantly scour my social media, collect items, and pull something out, sometimes long after it was posted, for a handy gotcha. Is my living my life and faithfully executing the duties of a school board director really the distraction and what's inappropriate? Or is it the behavior of people who obsessively watch and report on my personal political activities, which are completely legal, completely innocuous, and have had no bearing whatsoever on my school board work? Are those who, is the distraction the people who know I did nothing wrong, but nonetheless call me disgusting names and publicly suggest a protest outside my home? Is it someone who writes multiple bad reviews on a local business's page to try to force the owner to denounce me? Or is it the person who publicly encourages others to track down everyone who associates with me and tells them to make those people, quote, suffer by association? Is it possible at this point that we can say this has gone beyond the legitimate, appropriate criticism of a person's work into an area of complete intolerance for views and freedoms? I think it has. A small number of people are creating an atmosphere of tension and fear in our community through their intolerance. They don't wage these campaigns against any on their side of the aisle who hold positions of influence in their children's education and who are also equally as passionate and outspoken, which, let me say, that's exactly the way it should be. We shouldn't scrutinize and punish people for personal beliefs and activities that do not affect their job performance. It seems the worry over politics encroaching on our schools is only regarding those policies and politics that people don't like. Instead of appropriately keeping all politics out of school, they want to impose theirs and theirs alone. To do so, they need to clear the deck of opposition. They want to force one election to be undone and influence upcoming elections through intimidation instead of gaining legitimate community support for their platform. And there are no depths to which they will not sink in the process. They even falsely accused me of being in a group that murdered a police officer. They apply the Harry Reid standard of, well, it worked, didn't it? They will say anything if it helps them win. One group actually uses the Pennridge name and imagery to lure community members seeking useful information to what is instead, frankly, an online gossip rag. To create the illusion of support for their views, they have often deleted and blocked people whose opinions run contrary to their narrative. They do so under the guise of community standards, but an examination of what and who they censor belies that claim. On more than one occasion, they have also posted or have approved posts containing manipulated and sometimes outright false information to create a firestorm of controversy. Many people find the posts upsetting. They have contacted me to express their support, offer their prayers, and also ask, how do we stop these people from causing so much upset? The simplest answer I can give is don't give them any oxygen. They mostly hide behind their keyboards in some anonymous accounts and use the magnifier social media provides to spread false or misleading claims such as doctored photos, etc., like wildfire. Well, fires need oxygen to survive. Rob them of it before their fire consumes this community we all love. Stop following their accounts. Don't read the comments. We should not be held hostage by their inability to simply let other people be. I won't respond in the social media cesspool because that's not the appropriate forum for resolution. The point is somewhat moot though, because even if I wanted to, I couldn't, since I'm blocked from seeing the posts in which they're coordinating their witch hunt. But rest assured, I am pursuing every appropriate avenue to address any matters which do require action. I'll end by sharing an old piece of wisdom I might have shared before. You don't have to attend every argument you're invited to. People certainly have every right to find some of the things I believe maddening. just like I think some of what they believe is maddening. But none of us has the right to unjustifiably vilify others and strip them of what they've rightfully earned. So when people attempt to do that to someone in our community, let's not allow it, whether our views align with that person or not. Let's cancel the cancel culture before it does any more harm to our society than it already has. And let's focus on what we have in common, which is a shared desire to provide the very best education possible for our children. Thank you. And Mrs. Chenoweth, I'll send this to you to put into the notes.
Okay, is there any other new business at this time before we move into public comment? Okay, Dr. Bolton, I believe you have the public comment.
There are multiple comments this evening. Ms. Chenoweth and I are going to split them up just so you hear two different voices. So I'm going to allow Ms. Chenoweth to begin. Thank you, Ms. Chenoweth.
Thank you. The first public comment is from Sherry Lee, Hilltown Township. I was horrified to watch the events of January 6, 2021 unfold at the U.S. Capitol. I am equally shocked and disgusted that one of our own board members, someone I trusted and voted for, chose to not only attend a rally based on lies and unproven alleged voter fraud, but then post about it all over social media as if it were something to be proud of. While I am aware that attending a rally is not against the law and is covered under First Amendment rights, the events that immediately followed the Stop the Steal rally were without doubt seditious and criminal. Our children and our community deserve better representation on this school board than someone who believes in lies and conspiracy theories. Therefore, I am asking that Joan Cullen be censored by the Pennridge School Board and stripped of her vice presidency role and chairmanship of the curriculum committee. Mary LaValle, Hilltown Township. Please advise the school district policy regarding employee and board member participation in political events. Andrea Tambori, Hilltown. I was in DC with a group of women January 6th to show support for election integrity for all Americans and the right to peaceful protest, which is what the majority did. Our group placed hands on a prayer card as we prayed together for the nation. We also intervened when a teenage boy and his partner were physically assaulted by 3 others. Untold stories, ... Recently, there have been unprecedented, disturbing, and actual criminal attacks and accusations about community members on social media, simply because of a difference of ideology. I'm embarrassed and ashamed by the incivility of those in our community encouraging harm to others and their families. Our children are friends, and these adults are encouraging hate. Are our children of different ideologies safe in the community? Am I safe? These social media posts say we are not. Will students be safe and respected in the Pennridge School District? We should expect to be able to agree to disagree without such venom and nastiness. It's unproductive and detrimental. Embrace decency. Christine Baticki, Percy. Thank you for your leadership and courage in opening up our schools this year. The next step is opening up the high school for a full 5 days per week to serve the greater good of our children and community. Current guidance from the American Association of Pediatrics says the AAP strongly advocates that all policy considerations for school COVID-19 plans should start with the goal of having students physically present in school. My 11th grader has struggled academically from the lack of classroom interaction for more days than there is in class interaction during any given week, not to mention all the lost social experiences. Representative Todd Polanchuk recently announced the Pennridge School District will receive $2.53 million in federal funding from the Department of Education intended to support COVID-19 response efforts. So I trust money will not be an issue getting us to this next step. For the good of our children and community, please open up the high school immediately. Laura Foster, East Rock Hill. I respectfully request the board respond publicly to the community comments given during the January 11th, 2021 meeting. Emily Guide, East Rock Hill Township. The personal attacks against Joan Cullen continue to get out of hand. Attacking someone for sharing a different political opinion than you is not acceptable. Spreading lies or misinformation about someone is not acceptable. If you want to champion free speech, you must champion it for all people, including those you disagree with. Ms. Cullen was elected to her position and should only be removed by election in the same manner, by the same constituency. Calling for her removal by bullying and harassment is not acceptable, especially when drummed up by people or including outside of our community. Those who continue this witch hunt mentality should be ashamed of themselves. Their lack of respect for true diversity of opinion is appalling. Please stop the hate. Dr. Bolden?
Thank you, Ms. Shanley. Janelle and Todd Montigny from Hilltown. I would like to thank the board and Dr. Bolton for standing up for freedom of speech. Mrs. Cullen did not do anything wrong on January 6th. She has the right to her own political views and to express them peacefully. That is exactly what she did. There is no evidence that Mrs. Cullen went in the Capitol or did anything violent that day. Those accusing her of being a part of an insurrection are lying and slandering her. It is wrong to accuse someone of a crime when there is absolutely no evidence to support it. The First Amendment is first for a reason. Just because you do not agree with someone's views does not give you the right to try to silence and bully them. Expressing your political ideologies is not a justifiable reason to kick someone out of office. Thank you again for doing the right thing and not being bullied into submission. Megan Brady, Percy Borough. If we want to be Pennridge proud, we need to act Pennridge proud. Joan Cullen needs to show Pennridge pride, not just at school board meetings she attends and in the functions of her elected position, but in her time away from the school. I teach my children to be respectful, kind, caring, and decent inside and outside of school. It can't end when they walk off the school grounds. Pennridge proud can't be just words at the end of an email or a tagline we say. The administration and the school board need to make human and civil rights, diversity, truth, inclusion, kindness, decency, knowledge, and respect the core values of this district and the message we want to send students, staff, and the entire Pennridge community each and every day. We can't just say it, we have to live it. There is so much room for improvement. School board members are voted in. We have power in our vote, and I do hope when it comes time, we vote for progress. I strongly request the school board members in this administration not just to be a tagline. Words are only words. Leadership is shown in the integrity of our actions. The community is watching, our youth is watching. Let's make sure we are giving them something to be proud of. Dwayne Darrell, Percy. Everyone has a right to express their views. Thanks to our Constitution, we all have a right to be heard. What happened on January 6th at our Capitol is a disgrace, as is what happened in the summer across our great country. But it was caused by a few bad apples that went too far. The fact that the protesters were in Washington is not the problem. They have the right to assemble and make their voices heard. The problem is someone went in with more of an agenda than letting their voices be heard, and it got out of hand. Unless someone has pictures of Ms. Cullen or any other protester storming the Capitol doors and trespassing or violating a law or committing a crime, Joan Cullen and anyone else has every right to be in Washington to voice her support for whatever freedom they would like to support. We can't have freedom of speech for only a selected few to speak. The Constitution gives all of us that right. That includes Joan Cullen and any other person. We praised people for standing behind a cause all summer. Why is this any different? I'll tell you why. Because a few people have made a stink about it and it doesn't agree with their personal beliefs or agenda. Joan Cullen or anyone else should not have to battle to keep her position on the school board. In fact, we should be teaching our kids from their experiences how to stand up for what they believe in, as we did all summer long when people supported other views. Just because you don't agree with someone else's vantage point doesn't make one side right or wrong. That's why the Baskin-Robbins makes 31 flavors. Not everyone likes the same. I'd like to congratulate the school board for their decision to not make this a political forum and to continue to do what is best for our kids in our schools. Kudos to you all. Stay strong. Greg Huffstetler, East Rock Hill Township. Dear board members, thank you for your dedicated service to our students and community, as well as your transparency in conducting school business. My wife and I have lived in the district for 36 years as homeowners of multiple properties and thus have made a substantial financial investment in the school system over that time. In addition, our daughter is a Pennridge graduate, and we now have 3 grandchildren in the system. Each child is having a positive and safe school experience, thanks to the faculty and leadership in the district. I want to express my support for the board concerning its recent statement affirming the right of free speech and peaceful assembly for board members outside of your official board meetings. Such support ought not to be necessary given the importance of the American Constitution and its treasured First Amendment, guaranteeing freedom of speech and the rights of peaceful assembly, rights that were properly exercised by a board member recently. Unfortunately, there are shrill voices directed at the board that would attempt to distort facts and thereby suppress and intimidate such free speech solely because it differs from their political agenda. These voices are heard only because they enjoy the very freedoms they wish to oppose in others. Do not surrender 1 inch of such tyranny within our district. The very reason that we have our First Amendment is the wisdom of our founding fathers, who anticipated the age-old tactics of authoritarianism to squelch its opposition by banishment when it cannot carry the day in free and open discourse. We are looking to this board to remain a bastion of defense for personal and community liberties, such as are set forth and prioritized by our rich American heritage. Mrs. Chenoweth?
Thank you. Anita Baker, Percy Borough. Thank you for upholding of state code regarding your officers. As the dissenters to your decision voiced their disapproval, thank you for your continued esteem of the First Amendment. To obey the dissenters' demands, however, would be a step in the wrong direction and a poor example for our students. I'm sorry you have to endure this in your valiant efforts to provide a great education for our kids. Bill Coddington, Hilltown Township. Why are our students not being allowed to return to full-time in-person classes instead of them continuing to lose essential academic and social time and experience, time that they will never get back? When can we as parents and taxpayers expect this return to happen? Robert Sellers, East Rock Hill. I would like to thank the school board for your individual and collective strength during this time of attacks, distractions, spreading of misinformation, and cancel labeling. I have always appreciated the school board deliberate and thoughtful process to support the rights of each other, the teachers, the parents, the students, and the Pennridge community. I want to express my appreciation to the school board for highlighting and celebrating the life and teachings of Martin Luther King Jr. He has taught us through the strength of his words, freedom of speech, and his actions of peaceful protest to love each other, love America, and love God. I want to thank the Pennridge teachers and staff for your tireless actions and creativity, patience as you teach and interact with the students and parents in this challenging COVID environment. Thank you, Pennridge School Board, for reaching out to the parents and allowing the Pennridge schools to teach their children the way the majority of parents requested. Thank you, Pennridge School Board, for continuing to provide resources for our children with special needs during this challenging COVID environment. Thank you, Pennridge School Board, for supporting after-school activities and safely supporting our students to exercise, complete, and to maintain eligibility to earn scholarships. Thank you, Pennridge School Board, for supporting the meals program to our Pennridge students, who many of the Pennridge families are negatively impacted in this challenging COVID environment. Thank you, Pennridge School Board, for supporting and investing in school personnel, school facilities, supplies, and required COVID safety modifications without requiring the need to raise taxes on the community. We appreciate and recognize this is due to the hard work of the school board to have put in place a fiscal policy that has resulted in no tax increases to the community and has also earned Pennridge School District the highest credit rating. The hard work of the Pennridge School Board's fiscal policy has positioned the Pennridge School District into favorable future funding agreements that will have positive effects on the Pennridge School District, teachers, staff, students, and the Pennridge community. I know these are difficult and challenging times, and I urge the school board to continue to be strong against these unwarranted distractions and remain thoughtful and steadfast as we focus on the safety, health, and education of our Pennridge students. Jane Kramer, Blooming Glen. I am requesting that the board hold a special session on how the district is addressing concerns of diversity and racial justice. I am concerned that the district does not seem to be acting with urgency as compared to other school districts. Sue Cullen, Percy Borough. Can you comment on whether or not the high schoolers will be offered 5-day in-person learning before the end of the 2020-2021 school year? Laura Schroy, says Pennridge School District. There is no municipality. It's ridiculous to disagree with Joan exercising her First Amendment rights, and the district should immediately reaffirm their support for freedom to protest legally, which Joan did. Also, a handful of districts in Bucks County, including ultra-liberal ones, are now opening for full 5-day at all grade levels, meaning that Pennridge has fallen behind. You need to get your high schoolers a 5-day option ASAP. Dr. Bolton.
Julie Wallace, Hilltown. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press or of the right of the people peacefully to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. I support the inalienable rights of all Americans put forth in our Bill of Rights, including Joan Cullen. I understand there was a protest here tonight against Ms. Cullen, and I support their right to peacefully assemble. And I believe Ms. Cullen would as well. The difference is, I don't believe Ms. Collins should be forcibly removed from her position for exercising those rights. This is a very cut and dried situation to me, and I am very disturbed by stories of other citizens losing their jobs and livelihoods when they have committed no crime. I hope the board in Pennridge will continue to stand for Ms. Collins' civil rights and not set this dangerous precedent. I would also like to personally thank Ms. Cullen and the rest of the school board for getting students into school. As study after study has continued to show the benefit of having children in a classroom, Pennridge has been a standout in the county for having the guts and fortitude to address the challenges, and I applaud the success they have had. My challenge to any parent here today calling for Ms. Cullen's removal would be to first state whether their children are receiving an in-person education, and if they are, to thank her for her role in making that happen. Thank you all for a wonderful night. Brenda Hill, Percy Borough. I first want to thank the board members for their time spent working tirelessly for the students in our community. You are all different in your way of thinking, learning, living, and loving, but still work together to make the best decisions for our students and community. I'd like to address the board in regards to a board member and what she does in her private life. The First Amendment to the United States Constitution generally prohibits any government limitation on any individual's personal right of free speech, association, and expression, especially on their private time. Thank you for keeping your focus on what's good for the community, realizing that everyone is different and that we all have the right to exercise our First Amendment. Mrs. Cullen did not break any laws by attending a rally without a mask. The hatred and racism being verbally posted on social media is despicable. It is creating a divisional atmosphere that within our community that has been ignited by intolerance against those who have different views. Thank you. Carol Taliska, East Rock Hill. I understand that school is in a different situation due to COVID, but I'm very concerned with the lack of standards in teaching that is occurring at the high school. The consistent message I hear from my daughter and other parents is that kids are not doing their work. Rather than holding them accountable, teachers are providing them in-class time to complete the work. On numerous occasions, my daughter arrives at her honors classes, assignments finished, only to learn that there will be limited instruction as a class time will be needed to be provided for those who did not complete the assignment. The limited amount of time my daughter has for instruction is being eaten up to provide students a chance to get their work done. If students are not completing the work, why aren't they removed from the honors class so the students who are putting in the time and effort can move on? I understand the motivation behind this policy, but the reality is it is hurting students. Nancy Osborne, Bedminster Township. Please do not discriminate a person for their political views. Lisa Deal, Sellersville. As a mother of 2 middle school children residing in Pennridge, I would like to voice my concern for the general atmosphere of fear that a few people in our community have created through their irrational obsession, hatred, and intolerance against people who they don't align with politically. Politics do not belong in school. Please stop these people from using the school board meetings and school grounds for their political attacks. It is unethical. The only people who actually bring politics into our schools are the ones accusing others of doing so. They have a way of projecting blame on anyone who does not align with their liberal views. This is wrong. I write to encourage you to support the values and diversity of public opinion worthy of our great nation. Diversity means more than race and ethnicity. It includes the values bestowed upon us by our founders, who placed freedoms inside our Constitution and the Bill of Rights. Value like the diversity of opinion, free speech, a free press, and individuality. As a district resident, I observe and pay attention to the values you support and oppose in your leadership roles. I want to sincerely thank the board for the way you have conducted yourself in making decisions based on what is best for the community and not just according to personal political beliefs. Janet Kilma Perkinsey. First, I want to thank you for your continued support of our children's education and for keeping our school tax rate steady in the district. This morning, I awoke with the intention of attending tonight's school board meeting. After reading many public comments during the day regarding an on-site protest that was scheduled to occur, I actually experienced feeling nauseous. I had to wrestle with the decision to cower at home or face my fear and attend tonight's meeting. That decision has been made for me, this month at least. I am sickened by the atmosphere of fear that is hovering over our community due to public posts by those opposed to our past president, freedom of personal opinion, and freedom of attendance at public events. If we as a district concede to their bullying and harassment, this will no longer be a municipality in which I am proud to reside. Thank you for all that you do. Kevin Foster, Hilltown Township. I am a father of 3 children, 2 who attend Grass Elementary School in Hilltown. Cowardly, cowardly. That is a word that was used by a school board director during a school board meeting in 2017. It was used to attack, denigrate dozens of teachers that walked out of a school board meeting to express their displeasure of the actions taken that evening. This would not be a single event, but the beginning of an embarrassing trend. This past summer, tweets were discovered from that same board member that stated that there was no such thing as systemic racism, another embarrassment for the district. Now we have discovered a sitting board member marched with Nazis, white supremacists, and others who attempted to violently overturn the election. She stood by while police officers were beaten with American flags and tear gas was deployed, while insurrectionists broke through barriers and carried weapons into our nation's capital, chanting, "Hang Mike Pence." She has continued to amplify hateful and dangerous people online, including Holocaust deniers and white supremacists. The continued downward spiral of this board member into more dangerous activities and actions online and in person should be of concern to all parents. I thank those few board members who have spoken out and used the power of their position to try to remove this member from positions of leadership. This board member has embarrassingly even threatened to sue parents for criticizing her. The question remains, what will the board president do? If history is any indication, the board majority will duck accountability, claim they support the First Amendment, and take no moral stand protecting those who march with and amplify Nazis and white supremacists. I hope that I am wrong. Mrs. Chenoweth?
Thank you, Dr. Bolton. Joyce Stemler, Hilltown. Thank you, school directors, for volunteering so much of your time and talent here. Our country is one of laws guided by our brilliant Constitution. The First Amendment provides for freedom of speech and the right of the people peacefully to assemble, among others. These rights extend to our Pennridge School District and throughout the nation. That politics do not belong in the schoolhouse is underscored in our school election law, namely that school directors may cross-file with both Republican and Democrat parties. A thorough and efficient education for our children is our focus, free from public divisive partisan politics. What each of us does in our own private lives is exactly that, private. Isabel Gerhardt, Bedminster. My name is Isabel Gerhardt, and I am in 8th grade at North. I am commenting about what I see as a white supremacy problem in the community. Kids in my grade make jokes about Black people dying on social media, and an old man chased me in his car when I went to spray paint Breonna Taylor's name on the rock this summer. He gave me the middle finger and was yelling at me. I was only 12 years old at the time, but I had the right to speak up. Many students and I wanted to send a message of support and equality this summer on the rock with the saying, Black Lives Matter. And now the rock was moved because people were offended for no reason. When we say save the rainforest, it does not mean don't save other forests. It's just the rainforest is the one being slashed and burned. I am upset that the defense for people storming the Capitol, school member included, is not any worse than what happened at Black Lives Matter protests. I went to 3 Black Lives Matter marches with other Pennridge kids, and they were all peaceful. People handed out our voter information. They did not try to break into the Capitol and hurt members of Congress and change the election. There were people at Black Lives Matter marches that used it as an excuse to break things and steal, but that is not what was organized to do. The Capitol was organized to overthrow our country. Nobody at Black Lives Matter that I went to had Confederate flags, Nazi symbols, or weapons like guns, nooses, and bulletproof vests. They just told people to vote for change. That is the difference. I want to know how this board can change this if they can't even be a good example. Dr. Bolton.
Kim Badillion, Percy Borough. I have become aware that some members of the community are seeking to score political points by making false allegations against Pennridge community members who exercise their right to free speech. These individuals go out of their way to stir up hatred and community discord simply because their politics differ from another. We have heard the calls for unity recently. Unity will not be achieved by name calling and shutting people out of the public square. Unity can only be achieved when all sides are permitted to exercise their right to free speech. Through this freedom, we're able to enter into an honest debate in an effort to seek understanding and compromise. I want to thank the school board and district for upholding the right of free speech. I want to thank the school board for doing what is right for Pennridge and the community, regardless of personal political beliefs. Thank you, school board, for providing in-school, virtual, and hybrid opportunities to students during the pandemic. What a blessing that has been for the students and their families. Thank you for your conservative fiscal management that allowed the school district to have resources available to do what was necessary to provide flexibility for students during the pandemic. You have provided a model of excellence for other school districts to follow, and I am deeply thankful. Jean Huffstetler, East Rock Hill Township. As an educator of more than 35 years, I appreciate the Pennridge curriculum, which includes diversity, that includes tolerance of both values and actions, not just limited to ethnic backgrounds, and also anti-bullying as essential components in the education of our students. So it is with dismay that I observe the opposite being demonstrated by those adults in our community who are currently engaging in bullying a member of the school board due to differences of views. What message is being sent to our young people about tolerance and community unity? Is adult bullying acceptable? Is intolerance of differences our goal? Does unity mean that everyone must agree on a topic? Isn't that how totalitarian societies function? Or are we allowed to think, speak, and act independently as long as we do so peacefully? Accepting and working with others who may take a different approach is essential to building a strong and respectful community. Attacking and punishing a person for exercising their constitutional rights is an attack on the pillars of democracy itself. I encourage the school board to continue to allow Ms. Cullen to continue the work that she was elected by her community to do. Please do not give in to bullying and intolerance, no matter what the source. Excuse me. Lori Keller, Hilltown Township. Why during a pandemic would you schedule graduation at Stabler Arena when you have the large outdoor stadium to use? These seniors need their graduation ceremony. Why not have a date and a rain date? It's better than having to cancel at the last minute if cases rise and it is on home turf. Dawn and Jordan Taffel, Bedminster. Censure means to express severe disapproval of someone or something, especially in a formal statement. While this school board continues to stand behind the First Amendment, members of the school board should be held to a higher standard. We are again calling for this school board to censure the actions of Joan Cullen. While you may feel the need to support her First Amendment rights as a citizen, it is your duty as elected members of this community to send a clear message against the events of January 6th. This board has a history of taking the path of least resistance and not standing up for what is right. What message are you sending to our children? Nicole Weiss, Percy. Just like a lot of other concerned community members, I am worried about Joan Cullen's ability as a member of our school board. While we are fairly new to the district, I have seen her time and time again embarrass Pennridge in the short time we have been a part of it. Yes, she does have a right to free speech, as we all do. But while serving as a member of our school board, I feel her public comments and actions have been on the side of extreme, and some form of action should be taken. Thank you for hearing my comment. I'm sorry, that's Nicole Weiss again. I did not. There we go. Emily Smith, East Rock Hill. I'd like to thank the majority of the school board for conducting themselves professionally and properly and not causing regular disruptions to the Pennridge community. The majority of you do not engage in reckless and dangerous social media behavior, amplifying and believing in fictional conspiracy theories. I thank you for being responsible role models for our students and not spawning a near constant barrage of outrage. I thank some of you for being mindful of our children's wellness and following the governor's mask mandate. I thank the majority of you for not attempting to intimidate me and silence my voice with a really sad cease and desist letter. I especially want to express my appreciation for those members who previously voted to remove the vice president, and I encourage you all to follow their lead and do so again. Mead Height Baker, Percy. I am a 30-plus-year-old Percy resident who put 5 kids through Pennridge and have always felt fortunate to live and to raise kids here. Well done. I support the board's decision to not allow partisan politics into our schools. The school district must stop political activists from forcefully bringing political warfare, hatred, and intolerance onto our great school board. Stick to education. Do what's best for our kids' education and what you were elected to do. Nix the political hate. And more, quit trying to suppress free speech of those with whom you disagree politically. It's not only wrong and against the laws of our land, but hurtful of the district and ultimately hurtful to our students. Think. I support the board's decision not to mingle partisan politics with the education of our kids, contradicting common sense and First Amendment rights merely because of political disagreements. Mike Strauss, Hilltown. Joan Cullen must be removed from her position. We will not back down. John Badillion, Percy Borough. I apologize. I'm a 2016 Pennridge graduate. I believe in the freedom of any American to support candidates or organizations that align with values, including any one of the school board. I am proud to be a Pennridge alum because of the board preserving these rights for everyone. I grew up with this community and I cherish everything it has done for me. But this recent unnecessary division has become a distraction and does not help the students in any way during their struggling time. They should be our top priority and not somebody's political opinion that's done on their own time. I would insist on having an open and honest debate that is free of name calling and personal attacks that would actually benefit the students. These particular members of the community need to put their own personal beliefs aside and stop being the cause for the actual distraction. Thank you, Pennridge, again for everything you have taught me, for the incredible relationships and the lasting memories. I hope we can get past this and come together for the sake of the entire community. Juliet Rutch, Percy. I am very disturbed and alarmed by Vice President Cullen's comments regarding the importance of wearing a mask to help slow the spread of COVID-19 in the past, as observed in public comments posted by her on social media. Can I be assured that the mandatory mask wearing policies in schools are not to be waived anytime in the near future? Stephanie Brzezicki, East Rock Hill Township. I would like to commend the Pennridge School Board for upholding Joan Cullen's First Amendment rights to free speech and not to be swayed by current popular opinion. She is a fine member of the school board, and these allegations against her are completely out of character. Danielle Levin, West Rock Hill. Joan Cullen needs to step down, and if she refuses to do so, she should be kicked off or let the community vote. She needs to get out. Adam Buckley, Bedminster. Joan Cullen should be kicked off the board immediately. Stephanie Regina, East Rock Hill Township. My comment tonight is in regard to the board's response to the insurrection on January 6th, as well as the board's response to its vice president's conduct regarding that incident. I think most of us can agree that January 6th was one of the worst moments in our nation's history, as not only we adults, but many of our children watched terrifying, violent acts of treason taking place. As we learned more and more details about the horrors that took place inside the Capitol building and the detailed, violent, warlike plans that many of the participants intended to carry out, the more every American citizen, including parents and students of Pennridge, had to fear about the very safety and security of our nation. It was a lot for all of us to wrap our heads around and try to understand. As the national discussion of these events ensued on both local and national levels, I watched different communities put out their responses, including other districts in our region that publicly condemned what had happened, called for unity, and gave assurance that teachers had been provided with guidance on how to handle discussions of the events with students. I found this deeply comforting, since in my experience as a teacher, I have found that kids inevitably talk about major news events among themselves during school hours, and many place enough trust in their teachers to turn to them with questions. Given that school is also where we teach our children about how our government works and that we should love and be proud of our country, this seemed like an appropriate approach for school districts to take. When I finally received the first communication alert from Pennridge after the 6th, I was sure it would be a similar statement. Instead, it was a reminder about a staff and service day. After that, when outrage began to surface over the vice president's presence at the event, the only board response I ever found was that she was protected by her First Amendment right. Nothing about what we as a country had experienced or how it might affect our children. Nothing about understanding community members' anger or discomfort with board members' involvement in the events of that day, or that the extent of her involvement would be explored. Nothing that in any way addressed head-on the issues at hand. They protected a single board member and did nothing to address the concerns of the rest of the community at this complicated time. Of course, we all have our right to our opinions, but this isn't about opinions. This is about addressing the intentional violent disruption of the democratic process of the very country we ask all 7,000 of our students to pledge allegiance to every day. It's about the responsibility of the board to assure the community that it collectively condemns such what happened, and that it will take seriously the actions and behaviors of its board members. In short, this board needs to resist its habit of trying to maintain a facade of pleasantness in our community by brushing aside difficult issues or making decisions based on what they think will make the greatest number of people happy. The board's job is not to make people happy, it's to do what's right, even if what's right isn't what is the most pleasant or most popular. That's why not all of us are capable of being leaders, and it's why I'm not specifically asking you to find a way to remove anyone from the board. I'm asking you to be leaders and treat this situation with the gravity and thoroughness it calls for. Amy Fine, Hilltown. The board expresses concern that students, particularly special ed students, are moving to cyber charter schools outside the district. $30,000 per child is a lot of money to lose per child. What is the board and district planning to do to keep their students, especially special ed students, enrolled? What efforts are being made to ensure IEP implementation and student retention? Diane Telly, Hilltown Township. As you stated in the last Finance Committee meeting, the tax collector resolution must be established by February 15th. By tabling this resolution and having no public discussion, the next 4-year term will remain at status quo, effectively dismissing our request for a minimal cost of living increase. We are disappointed with how this has transpired to date and ask that you hold a special vote before February 15th so that this can be resolved. Thank you for your consideration. Dan Marshall, West Rock Hill. I want to applaud the board and decision for not forcing Joan Cullen from being removed from her position on the board. I want to also recognize the board for looking out for the health and well-being of my child during these unprecedented COVID times and making the best decision for student attendance during this time. Gabriella Wirt, Percy. Everyone comments that Joan Cullen has exercised her First Amendment right, yet when 225 Pennridge students wanted to peacefully form for 17 minutes to mourn the death of 17 students during a recent school shooting, Parkland High School, like the rest of the nation, Joan Cullen assured that every student would receive a Saturday morning detention, which would permanently go on our public record, all due to the fact that their ideology was not the same as hers. Joan Cullen should not serve as a leader for our district and community. Lexi Horn, Sellersville. While all people have the right to free speech, especially when it comes to debatable topics, Joan Cullen has time and time again supported dangerous conspiracies, like believing our schools should be mask free. Being on the school board, she should not have the right to decide what our schools should and shouldn't do, especially in this pandemic when safety is obviously not her priority. Mr. Kraus, that is the end of public comment.
Thank you very much, Dr. Bolton, and thank you, Mrs. Chenoweth, for reading those into the record. Appreciate it, and I appreciate all the public comment. We will move to announcements. An executive session was held on December 22nd to discuss legal matter, and prior to tonight's meeting to discuss a legal matter. The next
Mr. President.
Yes, sir. Mr. Miller.
Mr. President, there'll be an executive session after this meeting for both legal and personnel matters, and I want that spread on the record so that the record is clear. We will not re-adjourn, it's my understanding, to take action.
Okay. Thank you very much for that clarification, Mr. Miller. So, okay, so there was one earlier tonight. There will be one after this meeting, an executive session for legal matters. And the next school board meeting is scheduled for Monday, February 22nd. Thank you all very much for joining us via live stream, and everybody have a great night.
School board members, I remind you that the executive session link, we will take a 5-minute break and then I'll see you in the executive session. Thank you.
Thank you.